Hello, hello, friends. This is week 13, episode 13, actually, of the Launch Sequence podcast. And we're doing it live this time. Yeah, so if you're listening to this after the fact, if you are watching this on YouTube, perhaps, we did do this live both with the supporters in Discord and also live here right on Twitch, where everybody is going to chill and watch for the first time. So welcome, everybody. Welcome. We're going to have some fun reading some comments as we go through this discussion. But for today, I have got my friend, fellow streamer, Star Citizen, Master Moist Noodle. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right, man. I had my second COVID shot this morning, so I was expecting to feel like I'd been hit by a train, but I'm actually doing all right. So
That's good to hear.
hopefully that stays the same way all the way through the podcast.
That's good. We'll keep an eye out for that. Anything comes up, feel free to bow out. I can hold it down, no problem.
I should be all right. I think I'll be fine.
All right,
I've
cool.
got coffee. That'll get me through.
Well, today, folks, we're going to talk about today about the medical gameplay coming up in 3.15 for Star Citizen. That's going to be a huge change. That's going to make a big difference in respawning, in healing, and even adding a few locations to the game. But first, we're going to be a little general about it. I had Moist Noodle hop into my stream earlier this week, and we got to talking about some games that I did not know that you played. First, I want to start with Forza. You've been playing, you said you're super into racing games, right?
Well, I'm not super into racing games. I'm into sim games.
Okay.
But in terms of Forza, I actually play Forza Horizon, which is more of there's Forza Motorsport, which is more sim, and then you've got Forza Horizon, which is a little bit more arcadey.
Right, yeah.
I really like the open world aspect of Forza Horizon, and I have the wheel setup and the shifter and the pedals, and I literally have everything set to pretty much as difficult as you can have it.
Wait,
on Horizon.
I gotta know then, do you use the wheel setup when you're driving ground vehicles in Star Citizen? Does that work?
I don't.
No, okay.
I don't. Well, it does work. The only reason I don't is because it's a pain to keep the wheel set up all of the time.
Okay.
Although now I have the chair from Monster Tech, it does make it a little bit easier, but I would have to find somewhere else for the shifter to go because it would get in the way of one of the joysticks. But I'm actually hopefully going to be moving into a new place towards the end of the year. So my plan, I think, is to have a separate setup for the wheel, hopefully.
That'll be nice.
So I won't. Yeah. Sorry, because the thing is, I have a lot of tarantulas as well. So I stream a lot of the tarantula stuff. So I actually need space on my desk for working on tarantula enclosures and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen some of those pictures dropping into my Twitter feed.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No. I think it's really interesting, dude. I actually, I heard you talk about that briefly on stream. It was something that you were actually really scared of before, right?
I was terrified of spiders, dude. My entire life, I was terrified of spiders. I grew up with my grandparents rather than my parents, and I loved my grandparents dearly. But my granddad used to tease me with house spiders, with wolf spiders, and I think that kind of is something that stuck with me all the way up into my 30s.
Yeah, I think that would stick with most people. That's scary.
Yeah, and last year I decided I wanted to start putting together some terrariums. I was watching loads of YouTube videos about terrariums, which led on to videos from a guy called The Dark Den, who is incredibly educational, and he was building eco enclosures for his tarantulas with springtails and with wood lice and with plants in. And I just found it fascinating. And after a while, I realized I'd just become completely kind of, looking at the tarantulas didn't make me feel uncomfortable anymore.
Right.
And before I knew it, I'd bought a jumping spider, and then a local friend of mine had about 150 tarantulas, and I approached him and asked for a recommendation of a starting tarantula, and there and then I ordered a Phonopalma calcodes, which the day she arrived, when she crawled out of her tub, she seemed like such a huge tarantula, and now in hindsight she's probably one of my smaller tarantulas. But yeah, I absolutely love it. It's a really enjoyable hobby to have. Most of my tarantulas are really cute and fluffy. But yeah,
That's cool. That's
it's really interesting actually, because in 2 days I'm going to my first ever tarantula show. Well, it's not just tarantulas; it's invertebrates in general, or other. It's like scorpion, everything. But the guy that I'm going with, Razor, is a viewer of mine, and before I started streaming the tarantula content, he didn't own a single tarantula. I think he's now up to 30, I think, or 27, 30, something like that. So
it's
and
like
a
Star
couple of
Citizen.
It is. A couple of my other viewers are looking at getting into tarantula keeping as well. So, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent about
No.
tarantulas.
That's exactly what I wanted you to do. That's pretty cool. It's cool to have something nice to like be able to stream besides games. Something that you're actually into.
Yeah.
That's good.
And something hands-on as well, right? That's. I love plants, dude. You can probably tell from the backdrop. Well, it's not super bright, but I have plants everywhere.
I see the plants, yeah.
So yeah, my aspiration is in life is to live in a jungle, essentially. I don't mean actually in a jungle, but for my room to feel like it's a jungle.
I got you.
And I'll be happy.
I know that all too well. I'm sure most of the people in my Twitch stream at least want me to replace my own webcam with a puppy camera. So it would be cool to be able to stream something that has to do with my dog, but I don't know.
The thing that's difficult with tarantulas is that whenever I start talking about tarantulas and stuff, and I bring pictures of them up on stream, I feel like it's not a bad thing, but I feel like I need to give trigger warnings, because some people do genuinely feel that negatively towards spiders and tarantulas. So it's a little bit difficult actually as a content creator. It's a little bit difficult because I really want to create more of the spider content, but I don't want to necessarily push people away, right? So it's a careful balance. Yeah.
But so getting back to the games, there was one other one that we Battlefield, right? That you said you used to play Battlefield.
I used to play a lot of Battlefield years ago. I was actually having this conversation with one of my best friends last night, because we used to play Battlefield 2 together a lot. And the new Battlefield that's coming is the first Battlefield game I've been excited for a while.
Okay, that's good to hear, because you were saying you used to play, and I was like, I'm really looking for a good group of people in the Star Citizen community that we can just play some Battlefield together. So I'm happy to hear that
there's going to be a few, dude. Yeah, there's going to be a few.
Yeah, I think so. We've talked to quite a few people who are interested in it, so I'm excited for that. And it looks fun. I'm not entirely convinced, but it looks interesting.
I know, like my attitude in terms of the games industry is, there was another game that when I was streaming yesterday, people were talking about. I can't remember what it was, but generally my attitude is I will never judge a game until it's been released, right? Even if like the trailers leading up to its release don't look amazing, or if they look super amazing, until I actually see somebody on Twitch playing it, and see if they're enjoying it, and it gives me an idea of whether I'm going to enjoy it, then I'm not gonna judge it, you know.
I get that.
So while it's one of those things that I try not to get hyped, so yeah, I'm excited for Battlefield, definitely not overhyped.
We live on the eternal roller coaster of hype known as Star Citizen, so I have trouble avoiding that, but I think that's a great approach, because anything can happen up until that release, until you see people actually playing the game. I think we've learned that quite a few high profile projects in the last several years. Won't name any names.
Even back during the No Man's Sky era, right? I didn't get burned by that. And I think a big part of it was Star Citizen. I've been a part of this community for so long now that Star Citizen has educated me so much, especially when it comes to my feelings towards games and the game industry as a whole.
Right.
And yeah, I think just following the development of Star Citizen has kind of molded me into this, into the attitude of just wait and see what happens, you know.
Yeah, I think Star Citizen has changed the way I look at games, and a lot of things, really. Yeah, in different ways. But speaking of which, let's jump into some Star Citizen talk, the good stuff. So I'm just gonna jump straight into this. Actually, you are known as the PvP guy. I think more than anybody else I know. I don't know, man. Every time your name comes up, somebody's always like, "That's that PvP guy, right?" Like, yeah, he does take part in PvP, yes.
I think it just comes down to the fact that when I started streaming Star Citizen, there weren't really many PvP people, and I think my channel was kind of like the first one that started. My growth came from PvP, right? Yeah. I think my channel was kind of like the first that kind of grew from PvP. But now there are quite a few PvP streamers, and to be fair, like the last couple of months or the last few months, I haven't really played an awful lot because of my feelings towards the state of the game right now.
Yeah, a lot of people feel.
But yeah, I don't know. I think some people do see me as polarizing, but I think it's the people who feel negatively towards me are the people who don't really know anything about me.
Right. So
I think a lot of the negativity kind of comes from ignorance a little bit.
So that's kind of from there. I think that's a great segue into the idea that PvP is not actually what you want to do in Star Citizen, right? That's not your goal.
No.
So
no, this is the thing. This is what I mean. Like, I didn't get into Star Citizen for PvP. I fell into PvP because for somebody like me, there was no other gameplay there, right? And it still isn't. For me, the missions that are in the game just aren't really that immersive. God, I hate to bring this up, but the Tessa Bannister mission was the most immersive thing that we had in the game, and it got taken out and never added back in, and that's still so upsetting to me.
Bring back Tessa.
The AI is no challenge whatsoever once you've worked out how, the flight model, and you've got a little bit of practice behind you. The mining mechanic in Star Citizen is incredible. I genuinely feel that way. But it's not my thing, right? Again, it's not. When I think of what my dream is for Star Citizen and my goal for Star Citizen, the way that I play it, it's not mining, which leaves me with very little else in Star Citizen. And you also have to bear in mind that when I started PvPing, we had even less back then, right? So for me to find any sort of enjoyment, I had to spend time with my friends, a lot like a lot of other people, right? A lot of people in Star Citizen now still make their own fun, and a lot of that fun comes from hanging out with their friends. And it just so happened to be that a lot of my friends in Star Citizen at the time PvP'd. So that's what I started doing. And it turns out, the flight model back then was it's really interesting. And I was thinking about this before the podcast, because it was a bit like a sim, in that the more time that you invested into flying and doing combat in Star Citizen, the better you got.
Right.
But the systems in the game weren't complex like a sim, right? Whereas now, the skill gap between top tier PvPers and everybody else is a lot narrower. It's a lot the point I'm making is a lot easier to get into PvP now, whereas it was very, very difficult then. You were either a god tier PvPer or everybody else, right? But ultimately it's not what I want to do. If you look at the other games that I play, they are sims. I play Flight Sim, I play DCS World, I play racing games, WRC, Forza Horizon, but I also historically come from games like EVE Online and World of Warcraft. And in World of Warcraft, most of my time playing that game was me as a healer, right? I am 100% into support roles. Like in DCS World, I play Huey Pilot, and I love search and rescue missions in DCS World, right? And that's ultimately what I'm looking for out of Star Citizen. Again, a lot of people think of me as a PvPer, but what I actually want to do is search and rescue, a medical gameplay, right?
Yeah. So
Which
it's funny
hopefully
because,
coming soon.
well, like I said earlier, I see somebody literally came onto my YouTube video from last week's episode and left a comment about how, like, Moist Noodle needs to learn that this isn't going to be how it is in the future and there's no place for him. And I'm sitting there and I'm reading this comment and I'm like, I don't think he actually cares about PvP in the future because
No.
there's other things to do.
I 100% do care about about PvP in the
Right.
future because I come from EVE Online, right? And while I don't necessarily want PvP in Star Citizen to be like PvP in EVE Online, the reason I don't want it that way is I don't want it just to be all mostly boring roaming gang fleet warfare, right? But we literally just had an episode of Inside Star Citizen about PvP, right? And they literally reiterated what I've been saying for years, which is PvP is a thing in Star Citizen. It's always going to be a thing in Star Citizen, and you have to accept that. And what I've always been saying is that it will be very similar to EVE Online in that different systems will have different security statuses.
Right.
And it will be a case of there will be some systems where there is no security whatsoever. And if you are the sort of guy who takes a fully loaded caterpillar into a system with zero security, that's on you, right? But there will also be systems on the opposite end of the scale. It would be like, you know, being outside 10 Downing Street, right? Where there's loads of security and acting like a douche. You're going to get pounced on by security, right? So it's not going to be like it is today. At the end of the day, it drives me insane. Do people really think I enjoy just camping at Port Olisar all day, every day? It's boring as you know. The reason I do it, well, I don't necessarily do it right now. I'm playing other games because of the state of Star Citizen. But I don't want to just sit outside Port Olisar all day, every day. I don't really get that much enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, that's not nobody. I don't think anybody plays Star Citizen to. Maybe there's some people out there who do, but Star Citizen is too complex a game to just sit there and shoot people who don't expect to be killed all the time.
Yeah, what I'm excited for with Star Citizen is putting search and rescue stuff to the side. You know, if I do go into a combat situation, being a part of this epic space battle, right? That is part of an epic story arc, right? I literally have visions of scenes from like the Star Wars movies in my head, right? And that's what I want. And it's actually something that I think Star Wars Squadrons did really well. While I'm not that into the multiplayer in Star Wars Squadrons, at least playing through like the campaign was awesome. And even when you do play the multiplayer, it still feels like a pretty epic battle, you know, whereas Star Citizen right now is PvP is mostly just camping locations, hoping that somebody's going to turn up. You know, there's no way for PvPers to actively go and hunt people, you know. Like you can go to, yes, you can go to a location, but you're still hoping that somebody's going to turn up, right? Yeah. So
well, talking about these systems with less security, these are the kinds of places that are going to be good for these search and rescue missions that we were talking about earlier, right? Getting into the medical gameplay. And that's something that's really, really going to take a step forward in 3.15 we were talking about earlier. There's a lot coming with the medical gameplay. So would you like to take a start at what you're most excited to see from that kind of stuff? Because that's something you said you were really interested in, right?
Oh man, I'm such a simple person. Just being able to pick somebody else up, right? Especially when, say, it's a bug that kills somebody, right? There's nothing more infuriating than your spawn point being Port Olisar, and then you're at Microtech, and then your friend falls through the planet. Not that you can necessarily pick up your friend when they've fallen through the planet, but say you're doing the bunker mission, right? And there's only a handful of people on that server.
Right.
And the AI are Terminators, and they headshot your friend immediately. It'll be such a positive change to the game that we'll actually be able to pick up our friends.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely that is the thing that I'm most excited for. Obviously, there are way more in-depth medical systems coming, but for me, I'm a very simple person. I'll just be happy to have that,
Yeah.
really.
Picking them up
Um,
and even just healing them, being able to heal
mhm,
somebody else besides yourself. Like,
100%.
there are so many
Yeah,
times when I just watch my friend die in front of me because they don't have any med pens, and there's no way I'm going to be able to transfer mine to them in time. So that'll
yeah,
be nice.
yeah. Yeah, and something else that I've talked about on stream a lot, but from the standpoint of a PvPer,
Hmm.
it's a little rough. I actually mentioned to you before we started the podcast that for me, Death of a Spaceman really started with prisons, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think the medical stuff that's coming now was the start of Death of a Spaceman, but I don't think that's the case. I think prisons were the start. Because prisons were the first time that somebody could die and there was a negative consequence to dying, right? Now, the issue that a lot of PvPers quickly ran into was obviously there's a consequence to us as PvPers dying, but there's no consequence really to a bounty hunter dying, right? Other than they lose the mission. But if their mate is with them, their mate can always pick up the mission if they didn't share it in the first place.
Yeah.
And like, even if they lose the mission, if they know where you're hovering around, then they'll just keep coming back over and over and over. And it will be nice, actually, I think, um, when a criminal kills a law-abiding player who is actively hunting the criminal, that the person on the attack towards the criminal also gets a negative consequence for losing the fight, because there really isn't, other than losing the mission, a negative consequence to that.
Yeah.
I would say going to prison is definitely more of a consequence to just waking up in your hab and having to respawn your ship.
Yeah. And
So
that's going to be doubled down upon by the physical inventories that are also scheduled to come next patch. So we're looking at two pretty significant changes to what happens when you die, because not only are you now, you get to pick a hospital that you want to respawn in, but you get sent to a hospital. You can enter a down state. You can get injuries that persist through your respawn, and you can lose all of your stuff. So now we're talking
yeah,
about some pretty major reasons why you won't just go out into the middle of Microtech or go out into the middle of Spaceport Korea, without some backup, right?
I am so incredibly excited for physicalized inventory. It's something that I've talked about a lot because the idea of, it's one of the dreams for Star Citizen for me.
Hmm.
Something that CIG said for years was that they really wanted this game to be, one, about the player's skill,
Yeah.
but two, also about decision making, right? And really, when you have to make a decision, do I bring this gun or this gun, right? Because if you watch like a lot of content creators now, like a lot of streamers, especially ones that engage in PvP scenarios, just being able to easily swap out from, say, a P4 to a railgun, right? Pulling it out of the magic bag of
Yeah,
holding.
just yank
I
it out your
actually think
pocket.
I think ultimately what that does is it makes less interesting scenarios, right?
Yeah. You don't have to get
Because you're
creative.
not, yeah, exactly. It's preventing players from being forced to think outside the box,
Hmm.
right? And to try and problem solve. If you can literally just pull this magical thing out of a bag, then why do you really need to think that much, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited about the idea of prepping to go on an op, making sure that and then working as a team, right? Like you mentioned, making sure that you have a mixture of people with different types of armor, different types of weapons.
Hmm.
I don't know, that's just hyper exciting to me. And people in different roles, right? Like, for example, when we move more towards medical stuff, we're probably going to have more specific medical equipment to bring along as well. So, somebody like me might have to run around with a nice little leather doctor's bag or something. I don't know. I'm just kind of really hyped
It's
for that sort of shit. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does. It starts to lead us towards more survival gameplay, and I
Yeah.
think getting past that a little bit. I mean, this is Star Citizen, the survival game. This is you're thinking about who's going to bring the food for you, who's going to bring the medical
Yep.
supplies, who's going to actually bring the weapons and make sure everybody's safe. And this is just the first instance. We still don't have components working. We don't have things like physicalized cargo working. So it's a very
Yep.
basic version of it. But I think now what's most important is that we start to see things that require us to be outside of our ship for long enough for this all to make a difference.
Yeah,
Long-term
100%.
missions.
Yeah. Something that I've also been trying to hammer home to some of the PvP folk is that we've actually quite quickly gone from quite short time to kill to slightly longer time to kill. But ultimately, there needs to be a major attitude shift and acceptance of the fact that killing is going to become more of a rare thing in Star
Yeah,
Citizen, right?
very rare.
There is, I would say, for combat right now, dogfighting, there is a bit of an issue with jousting. I think I think the issue with jousting is, and I know it seems like I'm going off on a tangent, but I'll bring it back. Is mostly because of issues with a mix of high speed combat plus the way that shields are set up right now. The moment shields drop, I think people panic and want to get away so they can bring their shields back up rather than just committing to the fight. But ultimately, people aren't going to want to die, right? They're not going to want to lose the stuff that they're carrying. They're not going to want to lose the stuff on their ship. They're not going to want the consequence of waking up in a hospital and having, debuffs, like I mentioned before, podcasts, something like low blood pressure or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Because then you might not be able to engage with the gameplay that you really enjoy for a set amount of time. People are going to be playing way more carefully. And I think there are a lot of people in the PvP community who enjoy, just killing people over and over and over and over. And to a degree, that has been fun up to this point. But yeah, once the physicalized inventory stuff is in, once the medical stuff is in, I think a lot of that is going to be going away. And
It's
I'm
gonna
not
need
quite
to.
sure where it falls. Yeah, and I don't know where this falls on the roadmap, but I'm actually really looking forward to the armor system that's incoming and the more physicalized components, right? Because that will lean more towards that as well. Because again, right now, when ships reach a certain hull hit point threshold, they explode, right? But we
Yeah.
know we're moving away from that as well, and that's kind of bringing it back where the search and rescue stuff comes in. If a ship loses power and it loses its oxygen supply or whatever, somebody's going to have to go and rescue those people, right?
Yeah.
And that's where my handy Cutlass Red comes in, everybody.
Yeah. And actually, so a big change coming to the Cutlass Red in 315 is that because we're getting these hospitals, we're getting these sort of tiers, they're calling them tier 1, 2, and 3. In terms of the hospital levels, you have the hospitals at tier 1 treating
Mm-hmm.
tier or priority 1 level injuries. Ships like the Carrack maybe will be at tier 2,
Yeah.
or the 890 jump. Those will be at tier 2, so they can do tier 2 or priority 2 injuries. But then the Cutlass Red's going to be tier 3. And
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of a big change coming to the Cutlass Red because of that in this next patch. Not necessarily
Yeah.
anything that's new, something that might
Yeah.
be new for some people. And that is the removal of the ability to respawn in that ship, right?
I mean, it's a bit like the EMP on the Vanguard Sentinel, right? It was never supposed to have an EMP. It's supposed
Right,
to have
yeah.
EMP missiles, but they gave it an EMP because they didn't have EMP missiles in the game yet. The Cutlass Red was you were never supposed to be able to respawn on it,
Yeah.
but they didn't want to put it in the game without any sort of medical gameplay. So it was kind of better than nothing, which I think is absolutely fine. And at the time, they actually did a really good job, I think, of letting people know that it was a temporary measure. But what I think CIG didn't do a good job of is reminding people that it's a temporary measure. Same with the EMP. Like when the EMP is removed from the Sentinel, so many people are going to be mad because there is nothing on the store page for the Cutlass Red or for the Sentinel, right, that warns people that these are only temporary mechanics. And while there might be some people watching thinking, oh well, CIG shouldn't have to do that. Well, not everybody has been around since 2012, right?
Yeah, and they don't.
Not everybody was around when they gave them these temporary mechanics. So they see content creators or they see their friends using these mechanics and assume that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and they don't have to necessarily say that stuff's going to go away, but it's good for them to. It definitely
Yeah.
it says a lot about what they're trying to do with their store and their ships, and I think it's just really helpful to people who are new to the game. But
Yeah.
but getting
100%.
back to those tiers I was saying correspond to injuries, and these injuries are going to be different from anything we've had in terms of the health system yet. So right now you have a health pool and you get injured and you die, or rather you take damage and you die. But now they're talking about introducing the health pool as well as injuries, which are permanent, will not be healed by your med pen or your multi-tool or your medical tool. That's going to be a big part of that search and rescue, because if you get a tier 1 injury on your arms, you can't climb a ladder, you can't get into your ship. You need somebody there to search and rescue you, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be a really big deal, I think, in a system like Pyro, which I think a lot of people have drawn that connection to, with the refueling mechanics being an important thing there. Also, the medical mechanics will be an important thing. Would you rather be a search and rescue person who goes out and gets ships in a place like Pyro, or a FPS person who I guess, would still have plenty of work in Pyro, but a combat medic per se? What would your go to?
Both, I think. It's really interesting. One of the first people that I ever befriended at CIG, his name was Matt. He was one of the producers in the UK office. And something that he did on the side was actually mountain rescue. And a long time ago, I had a conversation with him about search and rescue stuff. And he had so many ideas of what he wanted in terms of search and rescue from Star Citizen. But I think, the idea of going into a ship and you need to try and rescue somebody who practically can't move. I think that's something a lot of people don't really think about in terms of like medical gameplay in Star Citizen. And I think that in itself will be a challenge, right? And it's not just about necessarily healing people up. It's getting them back to the ship. But yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of variety is the spice of life, right? And I don't think that I would necessarily one of the things that is really attractive about Star Citizen to me is the idea of having that variety there, right? So even inside of your, for lack of a better term, specialist field in the game, inside of medical gameplay, do you want to be a doctor? Yes. Okay. Well, there should be enough content there for people who specifically want to be a doctor, right? Or do you want to be a combat medic, or do you want to be search and rescue? I don't know. Like I'm not necessarily leaning more towards the being a doctor side of it. I don't think I'm intelligent enough for that. But in terms of combat medic versus search and rescue, like both, realistically, they're both really attractive to me. Like I said earlier, something that I find really attractive about Star Citizen is the idea of those cinematic moments, right? Feeling like I'm in the movie Rogue One, right, where they're assaulting that planet, and I'm running behind a load of guys trying to pick them back up, battlefield styly, with my friggin' paddles.
I need a medic.
That's just like, just thinking about that puts a smile on my face. That's super exciting to me.
Yeah.
And very often, thinking back to like my PvP in World of Warcraft days, the medic is so crucial to winning the fight very often, right? And keeping everybody up and moving. But in the same vein, one of my favorite things in EVE Online was, so I was part of I did a lot in EVE Online. I played that game for about a decade.
Sure.
But the thing that was my favorite was I was part of a pirate organization. And the thing that I fell into was scanning ships down, right? Scanning players down that we could pirate. Which reminds me of search and rescue gameplay, because if we know, for example, that there's some sort of beacon somewhere in the system, but we don't know exactly where they are, we're probably going to have to use something like long range probing to try and find them.
Yeah.
Right. And that in itself is a challenge and exciting to me. So I don't know, there's no one thing that I'm excited for with medical gameplay. It's just I'm kind of excited to finally have a support role in Star Citizen. Well, hopefully one that works, right?
Yeah.
We do have a couple of support roles in Star Citizen, and we have done for a while, but they haven't been that in depth. And using like the Mantis, for example, how many people do you see using Mantis in Star outside of like role play reasons?
Yeah,
right?
Barely ever. Sometimes I see people bounty hunting in them, and I'm just like, okay, that's a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that what you mentioned though about the difference between the specific roles that you would like to do and just the simple joy of getting to be a medic on the battlefield, I think is something that a lot of people miss about Star Citizen and the draw of Star Citizen in general. And that is that not everybody is here to experience some grand sci-fi adventure with huge groups and like logistics and fancy missions and all this stuff. Some people just literally want to play Battlefield, but in space. And like something as detailed as Star Citizen allows people to do that for a multitude of types of gameplay. And that's super nice. That opens the game up for so many people that are just in general fans of sci-fi, because then you get to choose what you want to do.
Yeah, the thing, I think it's really difficult, right? Because I think that's where I hate to bring it up, that's where Theaters of War kind of comes in, right? I think you're right. I think there are a lot of people who want that kind of gameplay, but because of Death of a Spaceman, I don't think we will. I think exciting fights like that will be few and far between.
Yeah, I see that.
Because obviously, people are going to be playing this game very cautiously. I had a bit of an argument with some people in my chat.
Well, wait. Before you say that, they did clarify that Richard Tyrer said that it's going to be very hard to actually die unless it's like catastrophic, something that happens to you. You said 99% of the time that you get shot or something, you're going to a down state. So there's some leeway.
It's not just about the death though, right? Okay. It's about like, if you did this awesome mission and you got this awesome weapon, right, then you might not want to lose it, right? Sure. If you got some cool armor, you might not want to lose it. So I had a bit of a argument with a couple of people in my chat last week because I was watching Will and Kate, who were a couple of the guys that came over from Elite Dangerous, and they were doing some Milsim stuff. And Milsim stuff is not for me. I know that Jace said Moist needs to play some squad. I don't think that's a game for me. Because I think the thing that puts me off Milsim was years and years of fleet warfare, alliance fleet warfare in EVE Online. I don't want to go back towards that. Sitting around waiting lots, having somebody tell me what I can and can't do is just not overly exciting. It's why I much prefer smaller groups. It's why I like hanging out with Cutlet, maybe 5 to 10 people. That's what excites me, right? I just read Jace's comment in chat and I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think we will get that battlefield scenario. The discussion that I had in my chat. Milsim is not for me. It's way too slow, and ultimately, there will be people that come into Star Citizen when this game is released, and they will bunny hop their way across the battlefield in nothing other than a pair of underpants with an arc light pistol and kill people who are milsimming, right? And I definitely see, and this is going to be a very controversial take, right? There is 100% a place for milsimming. It's great for learning tactics, group tactics, but what it doesn't necessarily replace is somebody's skill with a mouse and keyboard, right? Obviously, armor will definitely help with that. But I think it'll be very, very interesting when some of the good FPSs come over to Star Citizen and we don't have crazy desync in the game.
Right.
Because I'll be very interested to see how. And the reason I'm having this conversation is just because of like the point of the speed of combat, right? I think Star Citizen could go one of two ways, and I have no idea which way it's going to go. And I'm not entirely sure that CIG themselves know which way it's going to go yet. I think it could either go down the route of Battlefield, or it could go down the route of like the really slow milsim stuff. But I think that's where a lot of the balance comes in, right? And how CIG choose to balance it, especially when it comes to things like Death of a Spaceman, physicalized inventories, etc., etc. Because one of the comments that somebody made in my chat was, well, if somebody's bunny hopping across the battlefield killing everybody, then CIG have failed with Death of a Spaceman. But no, they haven't, because at the end of the day, something else that CIG have been saying for a long time is that nothing will trump skill in Star Citizen. All right, they want it to be a skill-based game, and just because you're not wearing loads of armor, right, and you're not using a certain weapon, right, that doesn't mean you've lost your skill. It's like me this week when I was trying to play 314. I was flying around in Auroras and Mustang, right, because it gives me more of a challenge fighting a starter ship, right?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't lost
You could say it's a handicap.
Yeah. I haven't lost the skill that I have because I'm flying around in a starter ship, right? I still have that skill. It just makes it more of a challenge.
Yeah. And there's a certain...
So I don't know.
And there's a certain combination of skill and assets. So, you have a milsim group who's very, very good at tactics and maybe not have the best skill, but that combination can definitely, outdo the underpants guy.
Yeah.
So
I think it'll be interesting once Theaters of War comes out, because I do wonder if Theaters of War is supposed to be that more sort of immediate action content.
Yeah, definitely. I
mean, I think the PU will probably be slower.
Yeah, the fact that they're bringing in Fire Sprite, who are, they have a history of working on full-on ports for other games. They know how to make a full game. I definitely think that they're turning Theaters of War into something that can be marketed and used as a way to introduce people to the Star Citizen universe. They've created far too much to back up this game, to not create multiple avenues for people to get involved in some way. It includes Arena Commander, Theaters of War, Star Marine at some point, Squadron 42, and probably more things in the future. It's a big company.
Yeah.
But getting back to...
Go on.
Well, no, you go ahead. I was about to change our topic.
No, I was just like, the more I think about it, I think I definitely lean more towards the battlefield style combat. But it's so difficult, because then what's the win condition? Do you know what I mean? It's like
I'd feel like I won if I downed everybody. I'm gonna feel bad killing people in this game.
Oh, I'm not, because it's a video game, bro.
Yeah, I know, but still, it's like I'm just thinking of this person just spent 2 hours getting ready for all this, and then I come out and I one shot them in the head. Like, yeah, it's a video game, but that sucks.
But you shouldn't feel bad about that, because you still, like, I get people getting really mad at me sometimes because I shoot them, but that's probably the most content that they've ever had in Star Citizen. Like, it's really interesting. I've spent a lot of time hanging out with Space Cutlet, right? He's one of my best friends in this community. I love Space Cutlet. And me and Space Cutlet and a couple of the guys pirating is the best. And there was one of my favorite moments in Star Citizen was pirating somebody who had never been pirated before and never really been engaged in PvP before. And it was back in a time when VoIP actually worked. And we called him and he paid us like 50,000 Alpha UEC. And this engagement kind of went on for about half hour. And we just caught him mining. And all he had ever really done in Star Citizen up to that point is solo mined. And the best bit was, not only was it a really cool engagement at the time, but he ended up going into Cutlet's chat on Twitch because he realized who Cutlet was, and said that was one of the best things that ever happened to me in Star Citizen. But not only that, but now he hangs out with Cutlet like every single day.
Yeah, but you guys didn't kill him.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
No, but that's the thing. Like PvP in this game isn't necessarily just about killing people, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
Even trading is PvP.
I'm not saying that PvP I'll feel bad about. I will feel bad about killing people, because that is a very definite thing in this game.
I still wouldn't feel bad though. I still don't
No,
feel bad.
I get that.
I think it's not that I'm an asshole, but my point of view is that they've lost some stuff, they've lost some guns, whatever. Congratulations, now they have a goal, which is to go get that stuff back, right? Maybe I'm a bit too brutal, but I would rather something to do than just be sat around Olisar doing nothing, right?
I guess it just comes down to whatever you feel is progress. If you had an ultimate goal that you were shooting for, setbacks towards that goal would suck. I think there are certain things that are feasible, getting downed, having to wait 2 hours for somebody to come get you up, getting lost in space and being stranded for a week. Stuff like that is, but because we have a limited amount of lives in this game, and granted they might be taking away the severity of that with the whole cloning thing, but the limited amount of lives, the physical inventory that can disappear forever once you're dead, the loss of reputation after you die, there's a lot of consequences to dying. And so if I was just...
be honest with you, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm kind of glad that they have... I wasn't sure how I felt about the cloning thing at first, but the more I've spent time thinking about it, I'm kind of glad that they're moving away from the idea of like permadeath, right? Because I think just respawning, having debuffs, and having lost some stuff is going to be brutal enough, right? I think slowing down progress rather than deleting progress is better, is I think what I'm getting at.
I get that. Yeah, I believe in that. So it really does depend on how they balance the whole death mechanic. But overall, there's a lot of discussion to be had there. And this was mostly about just the medical gameplay that was coming and how it sort of changes the game a little bit. But I think that would be another conversation. Definitely talk about Death of a Spaceman. But we've been going for a little bit now, and I think it's about the time to wrap things up. Did you want to say anything else though, about the stuff we talked about today? I don't want to cut off your flow.
No. It's a difficult time for me because I'm hyper passionate about Star Citizen, but Star Citizen doesn't want me to play Star Citizen right now.
Don't want anybody to play.
It's really difficult. Like, the state of desync, it just makes it really, it's not an enjoyable experience when I'm trying to engage somebody and I explode because we desynced into each other, right? Or
it's the same story with mining.
Yeah, I'm trying to position to shoot at somebody and they're facing 180 degrees away from me and shooting and still hitting me.
Yeah.
Like, how do I use my skills and fly evasively to avoid that? And also now in the latest patch, half the time my controls don't work, which practically makes the game unplayable for me.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a difficult time right now. The one thing I would say is the game things feel a little bit slow at the moment, even with and this was something I was saying to you before the podcast, even when it comes to like video content out of CIG at the moment. Something to bear in mind is, for those who might be new to Star Citizen, and when I say new, I mean within the last 2 years, is that it always kind of slows down a little bit before sitcom, because they're trying to keep all the exciting stuff for sitcom. I don't know. I'm really excited to see Theaters of War again at sitcom. That's going to be really good.
Hope they've done something good with that.
I don't know. I'm just looking forward to a time when I can actually jump in again.
It sounds like Moist Noodle is calling for just fun in the game, not necessarily PvP, not PvE, not any certain category. It sounds like you just want some fun.
Gameplay. I just desperately want to see more gameplay in Star Citizen. And I would like to say, I would like to give a massive props to CIG actually, because in the latest patch they have halved prison times, which is actually really exciting. When prisons came out, I think a lot of people actually came into my channel goading me, and they were like, "Oh, now you're going to go to prison." I'm like, "Well, that's more gameplay for me, bruh."
Yeah, it's actually something to do.
But it was, while it was something to do, and it was something that I was excited for at the time when it was announced, they dropped it in the game and then never really did anything with it.
Yeah.
Right.
They got the base tier, and then
I look forward to a time when prisons do actually generally have more gameplay to them. But they've halved the prison timers, which is good in my opinion, when there is so much that sends you to prison, right?
Yeah.
Without intending to. Like when you have new people to the game getting crime stats and they really don't understand why they have crime stats,
yeah,
and then they get sent to prison, that's a bit crap.
it happened on my own stream. He accidentally shot a security person who showed up in the middle of a fight with the pirate, and then you're in jail.
Yeah,
right, just like that.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, that's a big one. I do hope that the prison system gets included. I do also look forward to Theaters of War and how that could, at the very least, give us a fun way to play some closer quarters Star Citizen. Because like I'm not into combat, but that sounds like fun to me. Getting to play some regular combat.
I am excited for Theaters of War, but my only concern is the longevity of it. I fear that when it launches, it may only launch with the one map, because they've only ever shown us the one map. Which I think people will, a lot of people have the attention span of a frigging goldfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one map probably won't be enough to keep people's attention for too long.
Yeah.
And also, it would be nice to have something to work towards in Theaters of War, even if it's a rank. Do you know what I mean? Just something.
Yeah, some additional armor, something to earn in the game. Yeah. I think there will be more than one map, though. I think at this point there will be two, probably. If not right away, then shortly after, maybe next couple patches.
The only reason I think there's only going to be one is because only a couple of weeks ago they literally showed us that they were working on explosion animations for the station, which is from the same map. Right.
Oh, I just figured they're going to take that station and put them on all the maps. Yeah, man. Asset reusal.
War is something that I'm really excited for. So,
well, you see, there were different animations, so they could blow them up in different ways.
Maybe. Who knows?
All right, though, Moist Noodle. I'd like to thank you so much for hopping on the launch sequence here with me for episode 13, and everybody here watching on Twitch and also live in the Discord. If you are a subscriber, if you're a supporter on Patreon specifically, or if you're a YouTube channel member, you have access to the stage room where we record this podcast, and you can come in live, hang out with us before and after the podcast, chat away, and ask questions. But for all of you who are on Twitch, I'd like to thank you for coming and checking out the first live recording of this podcast, and anybody who's listening afterward on YouTube or any audio platform, thank you as well for getting caught up. We had a good talk here, and I'm looking forward to next week as well. Anything else you'd like to say, though, to the crowds before we head off, Moist?
Dude, I love your YouTube channel, dude. Honestly. You're one of my favorite people. I remember discovering you for the first time. It was Tomato Talk. I can't remember which video it was. And no, I kind of felt like when you first started talking to me, I kind of felt like I was talking to a superstar. So thank you for having me.
No, dude, no. I honestly, I've been watching you on Twitch for a while. That's the opposite of how I feel, but I appreciate that. And if you haven't checked out Moist Noodle, if you're here on Twitch right now, in fact, I will go ahead and give him a shout out, but also just follow him on Twitch. He does a lot of good content. Do you upload to YouTube?
Oh man, dude, I absolutely need to. I already know what to upload to YouTube, but it's trying to find the motivation for Star Citizen stuff right now. It's really hard.
I know.
So
I know.
One day.
All right, man. Well, find him on Twitch. Find him on Twitter. It's a lot of fun to follow. And again, thank you everybody for for hanging out, and we'll see you next week.